Mr. Secretary, thank you both for being here. Been very, very helpful. We all have a great deal of respect for both of you. It's clear that George Tenet was, as Secretary Armitage said, was pounding on the table. It's clear that you both were very concerned, were working hard on the issue of terrorism. And it's also a concern that there were a lot of good people, not just in the administration, but down in the trenches who were doing a lot of good, hard work. And I think that we should not, we should make it very clear to the American people that our investigation has shown that while there was an intelligence failure, we have seen that there were an awful lot of good people doing very, very good work every single day. I really have two questions. One was there a strategy for fighting terrorism where all the different instruments of national power were coordinated and applied together? Off the top of my head, these would include covert action, the use of foreign countries, disruption by foreign governments, the use of the Justice Department, prosecution, jailing terrorists when we catch them, military, obviously, trying to freeze economic assets. Were all of those being coordinated together? And second, and probably more important, if the answer to the first question is yes, who is driving this? George Tenet talked about a war against Osama bin Laden. He's the man who talks to the president every day. He is the man who the public looks to, frankly, in regard to the effort against terrorism. I believe that, in spite of that fact, in spite of you wouldn't find anyone who is more driven than George Tenet about this issue during that period of time. It didn't seem that all the things got pulled together. And I wonder if you could reflect a little bit on that and talk to me a little bit about structural changes that need to be made so that there is a focus that can be applied, so that there is the coordination that is needed. Because I agree with you, Mr. Secretary, the cooperation does exist at the top level. The question is how you drive it down and how you make sure that someone who is in the field, who works directly under the Defense Department, candidly, gets the priority that information, things need to flow somewhere else when they're tasked to do that. And that is the real difficulty that we face. I don't want to go into any more details on that, but that is the difficulty I think that we face. So if the two of you could reflect on those two questions. One, was it coming together? Did you have the plan, coordinating everybody? And two, who was driving it?
The National Security Council was driving it. It started in March when they called for new proposals on a strategy that would be more aggressive against al-Qaeda. The first deputies meeting, which is the sort of first decision-making body in the administration, met on the 30th of April and set off on a trail of initiatives to include financing, getting at financing, to get at increased authorities for the Central Intelligence Agency. There are some sharp-end things that the military was asked to do. The Attorney General was wrapped into it. The point on this is that it's not something that takes place at one meeting and happens, because there are many considerations, from privacy considerations to budgetary ones. And so from March through about August, we were preparing a national security and presidential directive, and it was distributed on August 13th to the principals for their final comments. And then, of course, we had the events of September 11th. So the answer was yes, we were on that track. It's not something that takes place overnight.
Secretary, and I would just say to the public, Mr. Secretary, I understand what you said, but to the public, that sounds like a hell of a long time. Mr. Secretary?
Fair
In
enough.
hindsight, sounds like a long time.
Well, and the truth is that these people were embedded in our country, the pilots 2 years ago, and the people carrying out the hijackings last spring. I mean, they were way ahead of us, and that's something I think one has to bear in mind in saying, where's the evidence of an imminent threat? By the time threats are imminent, first of all, you probably won't have the perfect intelligence, and if you do, it may be too late to do anything about it. I think organizationally, there are many things that can be done, that are being done, some of them not yet being done, but I think nothing is as important as what the President has proposed with a new Department of Homeland Security. The clear deficiency before was that we didn't have anyone with a responsibility for dealing precisely with that problem, and I don't think it's an exaggeration to say, as has been said, that this proposal, which the Congress is wrestling with right now, is as important to restructuring our government for this new security era as the 1947 National Security Act was in structuring the government for the Cold War. It's not a magic solution, and there's still going to be work to be done, but I do think it's very clear that we need that having a single official who has that responsibility, it doesn't mean that they'll work by themselves, but will focus a great deal of effort and thought and intelligence.